because of their transgressions against humanity and everyone else. For almost the next 120 human years, the Vox would learn why the humans try to follow the rules of warfare. When the concept is actually broken down to its base elements, there is a truly constant underlying theme. Most believe it to be to keep damage to a minimum so that the remnants, be it land, sea, air, can still be utilized. Then this goes for the population as well, as having those that have knowledge of the local area is a resource that no one likes to lose. It would be a good guess, but it'd be wrong. The base truth is so that professionals, those capable of massive destruction, don't take things personal. Because if they do, no rule, no order, no law, nor decree, or even simple suggestion would stop them from bringing holy hell down on the enemy by the most brutal and or efficient ways available, with the forces focused on the suffering of their enemies. This is what the Vox had released upon themselves. First, they had attacked the Lapin unprovoked and murdering and assaulting with impunity. They violated so many, it was horrific. Then they attacked like lightning, attacking every human sector at once, making the biggest mistake by attacking our home planet. Then they made planetfall on a human world, and they killed, violated, defiled, and destroyed everyone regardless of status. They did this with a focus on those who tried to save the lives of their own wounded. Even when withdrawing, they would destroy any human vessel they could reach. When the Vox needed time to rearm, as they were losing too many ships and too many personnel too fast, they sent a very virulent strain of manufactured disease to an ally of the humans, knowing fully well that humanity would stop to help. They understand this much, at least, of human culture, as humans decide to go and save the Lapin, the thing that started this entire conflict. With humanity breaking away so that they can help their allies, the Vox got their time. But they did not expect humanity to figure out the virus and the bacterium that they used, and what they had done or why they had done it. In the eyes of the humans, to use an innocent as a meat shield only brings more rage and hate from humanity as a whole. Humanity will still fight through a meat shield, but they're not going to enjoy it at all. Especially if a meat shield is slowly and painfully dying in the arms of those that had shown up to protect and save them. This drove them into a frenzy when they found out what the Vox had created. The last mistake the Vox made was their gambit to force the humans to abandon all hope and disappear off into the void. They tried this by attacking the agricultural worlds with excessive force, not realizing for a moment that you can't starve them out and you can't make them run. Instead, what happened was they brought the rage of all the human fleets into one point. As strong as the Vox are, especially with their new advanced fleets, they can't fight that many. The only smart decision was to never go after the Lapin again through this entire ordeal. With the loss of the invasion group, and with the war with humans starting in earnest, the Lapis home system was deemed far more trouble than it was worth. Yet one wise choice inside hemispheres worth of transgressions would not save them from the rage of humanity. Operation Cry Havoc reached a fever pitch, with the individual captains and unit commanders having free rein to attack as they see fit. The wolf pack of humanity's different fleets and battle groups spread across the Vox space, striking at random targets so that the Vox could not rally their forces for any sort of counterattack. The only restriction that was given to those sent into the war zone was to save the Vox homeworld for last. When jumping into a system, human ships would begin engaging the moment they got into effective range. Swarms of drones and torpedoes, with fire from the main cannons, tore into the Vox vessels and ripped them apart. It was so horrible for the Vox that many of them, out of desperation, either simply ran for it, or they tried to ram directly into the human ships. Depending on which ships in the systems would define if the humans would choke the Vox with their biologicals, glass them with nukes, turn the planet itself on its inhabitants, or send pods down with incredibly pissed off, exoskeleton wearing, plasma spraying, chainsaw wielding, high caliber pumping death on two legs. As the pods came down, the Vox always tried to rush the pods, but the troopers inside went at the Vox like angry gorillas on cocaine and meth. Only those that surrendered would be spared, but the Vox would rather die than surrender, even to the point of ritual suicide, as many times the population would be found gashed open with their ceremonial blades in their hand. The humans always looked at this and goes, I guess this is something you'll find everywhere. Even with their underlying rage, it would take humanity a very, very long time to take down every Vox world, as they numbered in the hundreds. As they looked at the screen, seeing the tsunami of death, the Vox tried to flee into different territories, yet they could not, as all the other species denied entrance into their territories. Every species now knew of the Vox's plan to either exterminate or dominate every species in the universe. Because of this, being shown by the attack on the Watcha, the Vox now have no way to escape and must face their fate. For over a century, the Vox planet are taken down 1, 2, 3 at a time. Sometimes it takes just a matter of days, other times it takes years to take down a planet. It just simply takes time to take a heavy populated and heavily defended planet. But humanity took it in stride, as they would break the world so much that the very few surviving Vox are essentially left on the planet in the Stone Age. For a species that was once the most dominant, now scraping by for survival, this was a great, great insult. When humanity finally attacked the Vox homeworld, something seemed off for the Vox. The humans stayed well out of range of the massive Vox fleet around the planet defending it. It wasn't too long before the Vox realized that the humans were not trying to negotiate, as they hadn't decided to call at all. No, they were just waiting for the rest of humanity to show up. By the end, the planet was completely surrounded on all sides by humanity. The Vox, still arrogant, demanded that the humans leave, believing that their world was unconquerable even by the human fleet, as even though it was only one planet, the Vox still outnumbered them. The communications sent up that seemed to be ranting at the humans did them no favors, as a cloud of projectiles and drones and stray ballistic shots filled the space, though packed very tight in their formations, would save them from the drones and torpedoes. As this crisscrossed their lines of fire with all their point defense systems, the main gun rounds striking the Vox ships would still cause many of the ships to spin out of control and end up falling towards the planet, or they would outright explode. This explosion would result in a debris field that did just as much damage as the volleys of fire from the human ships, as many large sections of the Vox ships would slam into others. With all their preparation, the Vox only lasted 80 minutes. As the human fleet got closer, the surface of the Vox homeworld prepared for the final assault, an assault that never came. While debris fell towards the planet, The humans stopped at about 2 times the furthest lunar orbit around the Vox planet, seeing that the Vox planet has 3 moons. As they stayed in an orbit around the planet, the Empress of the Vox tried to goad the human ships into getting closer and closer as she had an ambush waiting for them.
What is this issue, humans? After all that bravado, you still lack the stones to finish the job? I would have never figured you for true cowards. Come now. We dare you to face your own demise as you try to kill us.
The Admiral of the human fleet just echoed his voice across. There is no need. We killed you an hour ago.
Do not play coy or stupid. We know you are just afraid of our might.
If you were not so entrenched in your old culture, you just might be able to see what's happening. The line was cut as the Empress had no idea what he meant, but she did know that the humans are not in the market of idle threats. What they couldn't see, the humans could, as they orbited around. From space, the humans could see that the payload was already taking effect. A spot on the planet that was slightly south of the equator showed a strange gray spot on the reddish and purple world. This spot seemed to grow faster as it got larger. The nanomachines were eating away at the planet, creating more of themselves as they consumed more and more on the planet the more they replicated themselves. A few shuttles tried to leave the planet as they suddenly realized what was going on, but they were immediately shot down, falling back into the gray goo, some of them making quite the splash. All of them except one. This one, even before it reached the outer atmosphere, immediately began transmitting to the humans that it had females and children aboard. They began to beg for safe passage and were targeted by the humans. They would have fired on the shuttle, but the surface defenses actually beat them to it. The shuttle, realizing that there were missiles coming up, put the engines to its maximum to try desperately to escape the ordnance that was closing. They continued to ask for help from the humans and realized that they would be killed by their own people. After all they had sacrificed, the Empire would not allow them life at all, not unless it served them. All those on board held each other as they braced for the end, as they could hear the sensors beeping faster and faster, realizing that they were almost about to be hit. Then something shook the shuttle. Wait, were they still alive, they thought? They realized it was the debris from the missile that was chasing them. They looked out on their sensors and even out some of the portholes and could see a single human destroyer that had rushed in close enough to save the cargo shuttle. The shuttle was then ordered immediately to power down. When they immediately complied, they saw the destroyer dock with the shuttle and, through speakers, order all of the occupants into the cargo hold. The civilians found themselves inside the cargo hold of the destroyer and then waited there, thinking maybe they were just going to be spaced. They didn't know what was going on, but they could feel themselves moving just a little bit. It's though the inertial dampeners weren't completely working. Odd. It wasn't a long flight, and they realized that they had jumped to FTL, and then they found out that they were being lowered onto a planet. Going down onto a world through the gravity well is pretty obvious, and before they realized it, the destroyer had landed and opened the doors, and they found themselves on a former Vox world. They didn't see a single human throughout the entire flight, but now, as the gates opened, they looked at the faces of other Vox survivors. They ran out and embraced them, thankful that they had found others like themselves. Their species would actually survive, and that one joy was enough to make them just hold each other, grateful to be alive. As they looked up at the human ship that was now leaving, They wondered how a species so absolutely brutal could be so kind. It took nearly 2 weeks for the Vox homeworld to become nothing more than a shimmering ball of gray nanomachine goop. The nanomachines would now continue to consume and replicate each other forever, using a little bit of cannibalism amongst machines just to maintain this shimmering ball. It was a bit disturbing to think of a Vox even touching the goo, only to find themselves being slowly consumed by it as things seemed to melt off, digit by digit, limb by limb, body part by body part. The process itself was excruciatingly painful, as each part is chewed off by the nanomachines. Watching someone or something go through the process is true nightmare fuel, even for the humans, as many of them screeched in pain. Many humans turned away, realizing that this was just agonizing. But it's something that had to be done. When the humans finally left, they sent a message to all species that the war was over. Also, that the Vox territories were to be left alone, and isolation would be their final punishment. If they ever reached the stars again and tried to go home, they would find that shimmering ball as a warning to not go back to their old ways and make a new culture. Something less, well, stupid. True to their word, the humans returned to the council after the war was over. When the human representatives walked into the council after such a long time, they sat down in their booth, straightened their forms out, and waited for everything to start. As the council members looked at them, a group of 3 humans so nonchalant in their actions as though they had not just brought a dominant species to the brink of extinction. With everyone seemingly paused, the human rep looked up at the chancellor and simply asked, So, new business? On a nearly forgotten world, an old man sits on his porch, rocking back and forth. His long ears hang low as age has taken its toll. He looks out and watches his great grandchildren and grandchildren play in the yard as they joke and laugh. The sight gives him pleasure as he looks up at the home across the street. Out of respect, this Warren has never been sold, and his family has kept the exterior very well maintained. He thinks back to the day the human used to live there, the one that saved his life and the lives of his family as well. He thinks of the human weapon that hangs on his wall, how it saved his family. Out of additional respect, it has been maintained in pristine condition just in case it may be needed again. He closed his eyes as he reminisced, and he could almost hear the voice of his old friends in his ears once more, thinking about what he wouldn't give to see his old friend again. His grandchild shook the man's arm, making him open his eyes and look down at the child.
Grandfather, someone is here to see you.
The child points at the front gate. The old man looks, and there, standing with a bag over his shoulder, was Bill. Smiling and waving, Bill stood tall, not looking a day older than the last time he saw him. At first, the old man thought he was hallucinating or maybe dead, until he noticed all the children staring at this strange creature standing at his gate. The old man got up very slowly and slowly walked to the gate with his grandchild clutching on his leg. The human yelled, "It's good to see you again, Ragnar," and reached out his hand to shake it. Ragnar was hesitant to touch it. When he shook it, Ragnar said, "How? What? I I heard you were. Oh, rumors of my demise have been exaggerated. Not by much, though." Ragnar shook his head for a moment, trying to clear it, and then asked, "Balthazar? And Jake?" Bill jumped in. "Balthazar went back to Earth to visit his family. Jake, Well, let's just say it's going to be a while before he's back up and moving again. So, that means the war is over? Yes, it does. And that means one thing. What is that? I can finally come home and see my family. Ragnar understood what he was saying and smiled wide as his wife joined him at the front gate. Bill looked at them both and smiled, happy to see them both alive. They then opened the small gate, and all the children watched as this very large and muscular creature took one step in and gave the couple a hug, whispering in their ears, "It's good to be home." For the first time in years, the grandparents' ears all raised up slowly, and this was a sign of sheer happiness. And they both simply said, "Welcome home." Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you so much for finishing this story with me. I sure hope you enjoyed it. Before I go, I need to send a giant thank you to one of the major supporters of the channel, and that would be the Sir. No kidding, that's just what he calls himself, Sir. So, thank you very much, Sir, for your support of the channel. And to everybody else, I will see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.